if you are a visionary, is that your best and greatest thing that you should be doing? Is that your unique ability? And if the answer is yes, what can we do to get you there? And if that's the only thing you want to be doing, let's get you there as fast as possible.
Welcome into Impactful Conversations, stories and lessons for financial advisors. I'm your host, Dave Edgecombe. Joining me, a fellow Dave, kindred spirit, Dave Borland. Dave, how are you?
Nice to meet you, Dave.
Always
great.
Nice to meet another Dave.
Yes.
Dave is joining us. He's worn a lot of hats in his day.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it before we started rolling. He's a former business owner himself, but now he finds his way into our hot seat by what he's currently doing as an EOS implementer.
Right.
EOS, for those of you not in the know, the entrepreneurial operating system based on the book by Gino Wickman called Traction.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be sort of our source material, I suppose. So I don't have to keep saying entrepreneurial operating system. We will refer to it as EOS from here on forward. And I think you've got, well, I kind of want to know about your background and why that makes you, an ideal implementer for EOS. So shine a little light on how you kind of got to where you are and how you found EOS.
Yeah. My first business was at 25. You know everything at 25. And so I knew everything. So I started a business after working with somebody. I said, I can do this better. And it's a software training business. And so no one knew about how to work software at all. Now it's just second nature, right? And that business brought me into database development as a company, and what brought me into another business was web development and then a marketing agency, and these things just kind of grew on each other. And what happened with EOS was I stumbled upon it one day. We had merged a very successful web development company. We were number one in our market. We're doing 50 projects a week. I mean, like we're just huge, it's just a machine. And we merged into a marketing agency, and we started failing day two. 30 people. Nobody knew what was going on except for the owners. We have merged ownership, and so there's multiple owners. We all over the place. Everybody owned everything. Horrible experience for the leaders. We're putting money back into the business, and no one knew. It's like a startup with millions of dollars of revenue coming in, and yet we're paying money every day to be there ourselves as leaders.
Not a winning recipe.
No. And so you can say that. We stumbled into a system that didn't work for us, and then found this book Traction. Somebody says, listen, you got that system, the other system, it's not simple enough. You guys need simpler. And so we stumbled into this book Traction and stumbled into EOS as a system. We implemented that system, and in 6 months, we had a turnaround. A massive turnaround where we're paying ourselves. We paid back all the loans we had taken, but we were taking loans just to pay into. In 6 months, got the right people in the right seats doing the right things. And EOS, one of the EOS's colors is orange. And so I say now I became a, it's like people say, oh, it's like a cult. It feels like a cult because everybody's all in on it, right? And so this idea of I bleed orange now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were going to go the Kool-Aid, right? You drink the
No,
Kool-Aid. No,
that kind
bleed
of cult.
Orange. I like that better.
Yeah, I bleed orange. It's the orange Kool-Aid. Anyway, and what happened was they wanted to, my partners wanted to merge again. And I said, who are we merging with? And they described this company that was not a culture fit. We did all this stuff to get EOS, which is a big part of that is the right people and the right seats and the right people. I didn't see us going to the right people. It was going to merge into a large organization. It just wasn't us, and we were going to be sucked in by then. So I asked, hey, is there any way for you to, I'll exit, and successfully. So I was bought out by them, and then I was sitting around for a couple of weeks, and they said, hey, a friend of mine who was a client of mine too, who said, this thing you guys did, that EOS thing, I need that. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just watching The Price is Right. I don't know what else is happening. I didn't really have a second plan yet.
Daytime
right?
TV could point you in a different direction.
Yeah, I could figure out. I was horrible at pricing The Price is Right. So anyway, I said, sure, I'll come. I'll show you what we did. And apparently I was good at it. So he referred me to somebody else. I became an actual EOS implementer and started doing this 10 years ago.
I want this conversation is going to be, because EOS is far-reaching than just financial advisors, but our conversation today is going to be catered towards specifically the financial advisor experience and implementing it into, because EOS is ideal for businesses that are between 5 and, I mean, Impact uses it, full disclosure. I mean, and we're 130 people. So what's kind of the parameters for who EOS would be a good fit for?
Yeah. Gino said in his book, it's like 10 to 250.
Yeah.
It's the number of people. I've had clients with 4. I've had clients with 450. Some implementers will have, I got a couple that are, they're publicly traded. Larger than that. But it really works with a team that you kind of know. Impact is a good size. At some point, does it become divisions of, and then maybe it doesn't work at that point.
One thing when you give us your backstory and how you actually ended up finding EOS, it kind of touches on the 5 frustrations of business owners. And I think the one that you hit was hitting that ceiling.
Yes.
And not being able to feel like your growth is stunted. What are the other 4, basically reasons why a financial advisor in this sense would need to look for something like EOS to help grow their practice?
Yeah. The first one is lack of control or too much control. And so, like, what is it? So, lack of control. Everything happens at you fast. It just comes at you fast. You're heading off the highway, and the tree goes really quickly at you. You didn't see that coming, but there it is. The too much control is everybody in your business comes to you for everything, and it's just drives you down. And you can't take a vacation without checking in because no one else will let you, or everything's waiting for you at the end of the day or end of the week when you come back. Profit is one of those. And I find that financial advisors, a lot of them are successful, but they can't hire the next person because they made enough money for a salary, if you will, like it made enough income, but they haven't really pushed beyond that and said, hey, we're going to, grow this thing. And so part of that is a profit thing.
Okay.
That's another one of those. Being able to, have that team. What's the one you just talked about? You just said
hitting the ceiling.
And
then you were just alluding to people. Yeah, I heard right
people.
Seat, right.
Yeah, that's
seat,
the third
right
one.
People.
Yeah, right people, right seats. Having the people issues are huge, and people have those issues, and they feel like someone's holding them hostage within their own company, or maybe a client.
Yep.
But that idea, it's usually inside. And then hitting the ceiling. They started out strong. Everything's great. It's the fourth one, but then they hit this kind of meh. It's like meh. They show up and it just feels like a job. At that point, it's not exciting. And then the fifth one is they've tried everything. So they haven't given up per se, but this is a frustration, right? They tried everything. They tried, books and seminars and TikTok videos, whatever, whatever it is. It's like, all right. And so those are kind of the 5 frustrations.
When I was trying to figure out how we wanted to approach this and what we were going to talk about, I kind of thought, well, we'll just do this linear. Who's this for? What are the pain points? Kind of work through it. But then when we had our pre-call, it kind of dawned on me that this is almost like a series of verses. It's this versus that. It's working in your practice versus working on your practice in this salesperson to CEO mindset.
Right.
So can you shine a little light on that dynamic for a lot of financial advisors that are stuck working in their practice versus on their practice?
Right. In their practices, I call it the white van, not the creeper white van, but the white van that is the electrician, the handyman. Financial advisors can be that handyman. They're one person, maybe have some support team, but really they are the van. They're in the van. They drive that thing, and they're great at their job, but that's it. So the handyman is great. They'll show up to your house, but they can't take a break from that. So that idea, the mindset of like, hey, I'm really good at this. I can't find anybody. They need to break out from that sense of, I need to find somebody, maybe not as good as me yet, but they're going to be. And that shift to CEO starts with who. Like who besides me should do one of these roles that I'm doing right now. And I think if you start there, all the roles that you do in a company, I think you'll find, shifting to CEO is like visioning, what do you really want? So my picture, if you think about this for financial advisors, they do this with clients all the time, right? What do you want? I want to retire. When? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, right? It's a vision of the future. How much? What do you see yourself doing? We ask these questions, right? As financial advisors, they ask these questions all the time. Why don't they ask those questions themselves? So this idea, 3 short years from now, what do you see when you look at your picture? So if you imagine your phone and you say, that's a picture that happened. It's not going to happen. That happened. and you describe that, what had happened. Oh, okay, that's me and my family at the beach. We're having a great time. Great. Now picture that 3 short years from now in your business. You're looking at that phone, that picture of your business. What do you see? And hopefully it's not what you see now, which is I'm seeing a lot of crap behind me doing all the stuff I've got to do back at the office. And people problems. I see great vision. And so write that down, the mindset of write that down first. And then what's the first step you got to take? Make a people move.
To continue your handyman analogy, I mean, the handyman's great at their job, but when he's driving that white van, he drives that white van home and parks it in front of his house.
Right.
And the business never leaves him alone.
That's right.
So I've seen, I won't name names, I've seen financial advisors that almost feel like they're burning the candle from both ends of the wick and having great profit and doing really, really well. But that can be very dangerous for obvious reasons. Burning the wick at both ends can burn your hand, obviously. But EOS is still on the table for advisors that are doing really well financially because it allows for them to implement the happiness curve.
Right.
Tell me about the happiness curve and why that is such an undervalued component of a successful business.
Yeah. Happiness is a state of mind, right? So
last time I checked.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
So it's not always you're going to get to happiness and then you're done. But this idea, picture this, and I picture if you ever built something in your house and you had a contractor come, and you start with great promise and vision, and you see that thing, you're like HGTV, I can't wait for that.
The wall, drawn, and the pool table's gonna go right there.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You're going to have a man cave. You're going to do a kitchen's going to be beautiful. It's going to be 4,000 square feet, whatever. What is that? So you're visioning that. So your happiness, your euphoria of that is a little tempered, but you get this. It's like a curve, and you start to get to this spot where people are like, "Wait a minute, what's happening next? I got to talk to the architect." And they get excited more because they see the visual. Then they get prices, and it goes down because pricing way higher than a 4,000 square foot kitchen. That's got a little more than I can afford. How about 400 or 100?
Yeah.
And what's it look like? And then they're excited. But then what happens? The construction starts, and it's all messy. This is the part that I think if you were to get through EOS as a system, is you're going to go through some messy. Nothing worth doing is easy. And so construction on your house is not easy. It doesn't just happen. Snap your fingers and it happens. That construction is hard, and sometimes the contractor isn't doing it as fast as you want, and you're just living off in your bathroom as your kitchen. But eventually, if done right, that concept of they turn that curve, the happiness curve, is we push through the hard stuff. We've talked about it. We've worked through it. And now construction continues. And we get to a spot where we're living in that kitchen and it's beautiful. We love it.
One key component of EOS is the term visionary.
Yeah.
And that's the business owner. And that's the one that's has this grand vision and is trying to transition from that salesperson to CEO mindset. Right. And this idea of vision. Visionary can feel like a really heavy title for someone to label on themselves.
Yeah.
But you guys think that that's an incredible, is that the first step for that person to realize that they are the visionary and that they need to realize their vision and put pen to paper?
Yeah. Are they? My first question is, are they the visionary? And so,
they're not even always the.
No, not always. Like some people are like, hey, I took this business over. It's been my parents' business or my third generation. I've had those clients, and I really just like to do X. What is that you like? I'd love to sell. Great, you're an advisor. You want to be an advisor.
Yeah, that's
it. I don't want to lead a leadership team. Cool. I don't dream dreams. I really love this. So that's my first question. Are you a visionary? There's a book called Rocket Fuel, by the way. It's an EOS book, but it's a great book. Are you a visionary? And that's was one of the questions. And so visionary just means you dream the big dreams. You kind of have the big ideas, your big relationships. You're kind of that force. I call it the Walt Disney. Walt Disney had Roy Disney, his brother, to do the work. And Walt Disney never designed rides. He wasn't an engineer, right? He had the vision, right? That idea of, do you want to be visionaries first? If you are visionary, is that your best and greatest thing that you should be doing? Is that your unique ability? If the answer is yes, What can we do to get you there? And if that's the only thing you want to be doing, let's get you there fast as possible.
To pull back the curtain a little bit, we're at our Impact's annual kickoff event in Atlanta at the JW Marriott, and we just heard John Maxwell talk about vision.
Yeah.
And seeing, now I need to remember what he said, but it was vision. People with vision see more, but they also see it sooner.
Right.
Why is it so important for that visionary to step back and both see more, but also see the big picture?
100%. If they're in the day-to-day of doing, so if they have roles that are doing roles, they can't have time for vision, right? They can't have time to see things beforehand. So that idea is critical. So if we could do that, there's a tool that I recommend to people, if you think about this. They basically go by themselves to another place, like just say go to Starbucks, someplace like sit there and write down. So there's some questions that John Maxwell used, right? And there's questions you can ask yourself. What do I really want is a great one to start with. What do I really want? What do I see that needs to change? Write it down. It's a clarity, basically having a clarity conference with yourself. And so do that once a month, whatever. So if you're a visionary trapped in the day-to-day, you're going to spend time with a client, it's you, for 1 hour at Starbucks or whatever, by yourself with no technology, and just start writing. Just a yellow pad or Remarkable or whatever you're using, no technology besides that, and just start writing. Bring some questions and just start asking.
Well, one thing that jumped out to me was we have a few advisors at Impact that have adopted EOS, and one of them, Abe, who's spoken about it to other advisors, and I know that you've been very involved in Abe's practice, and when he kind of peeled it back and went through his process for when they were actually going through the adoption phase, I suppose, was how detailed and specific those goals were.
Right.
They weren't, I'm going to work harder this year. It was, we're going to hit X. Right. We're going to hire 5 people. And it was long. It was 10, 12 things long.
Right.
Why is it so important for those to be real, tangible things and not these mythical ideas of I'm going to work harder and not smarter,
Yeah. Yeah. You got this term called SMART. Have you heard this acronym before?
Oh, only in our pre-call.
Okay, very good. So it stands for this. So if you remember this: specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, relevant, and time frame. So it's the idea of like, hey, I'm going to be healthier, this year. Great. What does that mean? You said nothing, right? So I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to run the New York City Marathon and complete it. Right? Or is it, I'm going to run the New York City Marathon and win it? There's 2 different things there, right? Is it relevant? Sure. Is it achievable? No. Hell no. So the idea of like, when you put goals down that are specific, you can't weasel out of them. I think that's part of it. It's like a leadership team goes, we're going to be number 1. How do you know you're number 1? Well, what's number 1 look like? Is there a measurable there that we can say, yes, you are number 1, or you did achieve X? Write that down, because what we'll do is we'll say what has to happen between now and let's say the end of the year to do that. And the next 90 days, what has to happen to get to start, or the next week, or today. And so that goal has to be specific.
If I can tack on some advice for when that advisor goes to that Starbucks and tries to come up with that list, maybe write SMART at the top of that piece of paper.
It's a great idea.
And cross-reference. Say, did I just write something that checks all 5 of those boxes? And if it's not, then, well, you need to continue on and you need to come up with something that is achievable.
Brilliant. Love that.
All right. I'm glad I could contribute to that.
Yeah, that's great.
I've got another versus, and that's lack of control versus the need for too much control.
Yeah.
I think a lot of advisors kind of fit into that box of they've got their hands in so many different things because, well, I do it best.
Right.
I'm the best person to answer the phone, so I'm going to answer the phone. I'm best at seminars, so I'm going to be the one doing all the seminars.
Right.
Why is that dangerous?
Yeah, dangerous because they're the best at everything. They've been doing it for 20 years, right? And so what happens when you are not here? Business goes away. Or maybe you sell your AUM or stuff. Okay, but what happens? So there's a tool for this too. It's called the accountability chart.
Okay, this I've heard about.
Yeah.
I've heard about the accountability chart.
Right, you've seen this. So this idea of accountability chart looks like an org chart, but it's unlike an org chart, which is name and title, president, vice president, whatever. This doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Especially for an entrepreneur that is in 5 or 10 roles, the visionary, the COO, and they're also lead finance, and they're because they're controlling the numbers. They're sales, they're an advisor, they're, just name it, right? They're marketing, they're everything.
Yeah.
And so this idea of if you build a chart first without names in it, you just put all the roles that if you were to sell your company, what are the roles in that company? What are the functions? And then for each, so marketing and sales and service, finance. And then you say, what are the bullets, if you will? What are the responsibilities of those? Do that first, and then put a name in every one of them. Who really owns that function? Chances are, the truth serum is your name, if you're the owner, shows up in a bunch of them. And then my hope for them is to say, hey, to get out of that, what happens to too much control, too little control? Which one of those do you want to start finding your second person for? Who's going to take that over for you, let's say, next year? Well, you need to find it who. And so if your name in there, you don't get it, want it, or have capacity to do it, if your name is in there, let's write that down as a SMART goal right away. It's like, hey, by this time next year, I will not own finance, or I will not own service, or I will not own the sales leadership. I'll still be an advisor, but I won't lead the sales team. Okay, do that, write it down, and then what has to happen is secondary. That the first part is the hard part, writing it down, sharing it with people, and then start.
Can I put you on the spot? What are some of the average or the ones that you see in terms of those SMART goals that you see financial advisors are, a lot of them are writing the same thing.
Right.
What are some, do you have some of those examples that are, this one comes up a lot?
Yeah. Well, they'll have the obvious ones that are measurable. So like, hey, if I'm doing AUM or, how many clients do we as an entity, I like to visualize that. And so it's like in the next year, we're going to have this at, X, whatever. Right. So those are measurables.
Yeah.
So those are big goals they'll call goals, but they'll also have goals below the line, below the numbers of line, that group, profit, all that. That would be something like, what's getting in the way of getting to what I want? So one of those that I'll see is just what I described. My name is Bob. Bob is not in the finance role function by the end of this year. It's actually a company goal because it's your company. Yeah. Number one, it's not a huge, multinational company. It's like 10 people or 12 or 6. Mm-hmm. What does it look like? And so if I am putting my name in there, that's one of the things that I recommend highly. The beginning of the process is part of that. Like we have a franchise model to our business. And I say the words process is sexy because when it's followed, it's very pretty. It's just, there it is, right? And so write that. So that's one I always say, hey, what are you doing here? You have the right people in the right seats. Another big one, not just you, the owner, but everyone on your team, huge, and at least 100% the first year. And I recommend every year that they put, how many right people, right seats do you have? Not people, right seats. They fit your culture. So we didn't talk about culture at all, but culture.
Yeah.
And then the right seats is they get it. They want it. They have capacity to do that job.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned your fictional advisor of Bob wanting to step back. Abe had something very similar on his list of goals. Was Abe's role is going to step back from seeing clients to be more of that CEO role. Another versus, and this is one, I found the parallels between an advisor implementing EOS and an advisor having conversations with retirees and pre-retirees about spending and the fear of spending, and the parallels of, EOS isn't cheap necessarily. I mean, it costs money to do and to implement and to invest in your practice.
Right.
And so is that one of the biggest obstacles that a financial advisor that could benefit tremendously from EOS is, but look, have you seen the price tag? I don't know. I don't see the value in that.
Yeah. And I have 3 types of teams that I work with, and I think about rock stars that get it right away. It's worth it right away. I've called the mulligan people. Mulligan. I'm not a golfer, but when I do golf, I need a mulligan.
You're a mulligan man.
Every
I can tell.
time.
Okay.
That first shot. Woo,
there's always a mulligan off the first tee.
4. Yeah. And then so you take that second shot. Hopefully it's better. And then third kind of client that I'll have sometimes is the client is not worth it at all, and he should not have paid for it.
Yeah.
But usually 95% of the time, the value of it, and you're right, it's like any investment.
Yeah.
Right. Invest in people. You hire someone, you're investing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on somebody that year and hoping that they're going to do their job for you. So that idea of that, what I'll tell people about EOS is this is true of all EOS implementers, and it's not a pitch for me or anyone else, but the idea of like, if you're going to invest in EOS with an implementer, there's a guarantee, and it works like this. You don't pay if you didn't find value. Like, there's no contract. You just don't pay it for the day they're there. So you show up to this meeting, it's a off-site, and you're like, well, that was a waste of time. Don't pay the check, period. So my hope for when I talk with people, I'm like, hey, you got to have some sort of, I want to 10X this for you. What do you want? Freedom of time, money, relationships, purpose? What is that? What's that thing you want? And if you spend money, is that going to be worth it? What do you want? Freedom of time? How much is that worth to you? Money? What's that? So I asked those questions, and I said, is this what you're going to invest going to be worth it or not?
Well, it's the same direct line of questioning that a financial advisor is sitting across the table having with their clients and prospects.
Right.
Like, well, where do you want to be in 10 years? How do you want to live? What do you want to do with your retirement kind of thing? And forcing them to have those answers, because then the plan becomes a little bit easier to put together.
That's right.
Another one that came up that I found really interesting in terms of a barrier for entry for a lot of financial advisors is this concept of fear of success.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the fear of success, because that's not one that you hear about a whole lot, and yet can be just as, I mean, I don't want to say damning, but it can stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. When they think of success, sometimes they think big, and it's like this thing that they don't know everybody anymore, and they don't have control and all this stuff. And it's this idea of like, what does success look like? What is that? And so when you paint that picture, remember that 3-year picture thing? It's like, hey, how big do you want to be? I have several clients who say, I love what I do. I don't want to be, the top 10 advisor. I don't want to walk across the stage. I like to be 25th, 30th. I have some clients in Impact that are like
comfy in that 30.
Yeah. And they're having a great life.
Life can still be good.
Oh, it's very good. But they don't want to hey, I don't want to merge and acquire 14 other people and have to go across the country to do things. And I don't want to, you mentioned John Maxwell today. He's traveling constantly because he loves it. Warren Buffett loves what he does, right? So if you love what you do that. If what you love to do is not to grow 10X, what do you love to do? What do you want?
That's a good question. And it's an important one that you have the answer to. And one thing that jumped out to me about EOS and when it is implemented and kind of the flow chart of leadership, I guess, is how it can impact decision making. And another versus urgency versus calculated.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, this is an issue that we're having. We need to solve this by the end of day today.
Right.
Well, then you're going to be solving it a couple more times because you might not get it right.
That's right.
Whereas with EOS, it allowed you sort of the clarity and the opportunity to step back, pit it with some other people and say, well, how are we going to solve this problem once?
Right. Yeah, we use the term IDS, so identify the issue, discuss and solve it. And so if you have a firefight and you've got hey, the place is on fire. Yeah, okay, put the fire out. Right, we got that. Then get out. Right, there's that. So sometimes they are that kind of thing, but then if you have an opportunity, and we call it a weekly meeting, we call it a level 10 meeting. If your leadership team can get together once and say, hey, what did we learn this last week? Is there any issues we need to solve for the longer term greater good? That will go away forever. And my example of that is imagine if you're an advisor and you're spending 10 minutes a day on something, trying to teach or just trying to do something that you shouldn't be doing. You're your own paraplanner, right? And so there you are doing your stuff. You're trying to collect all the information and do it for your prospects and your clients. What if you had someone else doing that? And it takes you 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day multiplied by 5 and take 2 weeks off. It's 2,500 minutes. And if you do the math, that's 41.6 hours a year. What if you could take a vacation from the 10 minutes? That's what we're talking about. It's a vacation from a 10-minute problem. And so it's I could stop doing this for 10 minutes. What would I do with a vacation? Oh, maybe I'll take a vacation. Or would I be that visionary we talked about earlier? Mm-hmm. Or would it be something else? I just love advising more. Maybe like the Warren Buffett thing. I love to invest. I want to spend more time with more clients. Great. I don't want to spend time over here in finance. Great. 10 minutes. How do we find someone that can take that 10 minutes? Maybe it takes them 20, but you're way more valuable than they are in terms of dollars, right? Not a valuable person, but that idea of you're paying somebody $20 an hour to do something versus what are you worth? $100, $200, $300 an hour? What's your value? Are you doing $20 an hour work? let's cut that out. So IDS is one of those things we identify, discuss, and solve it for the long-term greater good.
So we've talked about pain points. We've talked about a lot of the things that I have on my sheet here in terms of the verses and why an advisor should do this, why they shouldn't do it, why they're not doing it. What are some of the, well, I guess we can get into it. I mean, real quick, what are some of the pain points of the advisors that you work with where they struggle with the implementation of EOS?
They struggle in a couple of ways. If they are the only person in leadership, it doesn't work. Right? They have to have somebody that they trust to at least come onto the team that can take on some of that stuff. And so how do you build that is to start with finding a who that can do something well. Service. Great, there's two of us. I've had some clients of 2-person leadership teams. When we do that, remember that I mentioned that accountability chart?
Yeah.
We build that out and we say, who's my first? We just start there. So working with the implementer, my suggestion is if me or someone else is like, hey, how do I build that accountability chart first before even working with an implementer? Find a who or two that can at least partially fill your leadership team, maybe even temporarily. That's the first thing. Read the book Traction. Certainly you mentioned Traction before. If you don't like to read, there's Audible, and there's so many options, right? Videos. But that idea of like start, just push play and start. And I always start with looking at the accountability chart and say, hey, what are that? I need somebody on the team. That's when it doesn't work, is if I'm not an executive coach. I don't work one-on-one. And that feels like that. So I work with leadership teams. Implementers work with leadership teams. That's it. We don't work with, just one-on-one with the owner.
The one other big one, before I take up too much of your time, the one other big one that I have to talk to you about is family practices. And how EOS can make Sunday night family dinner a little awkward, maybe, right. or why it's so valuable for those practices specifically, where everybody is going to see everybody at Thanksgiving. So what's your experience been with family practices in EOS?
It's critical to them. I've got many clients in wealth management advisors that are family businesses, right? Or outside of that, other companies. One is almost 100-year-old company, started in insurance, and they do other things, property casualty mostly. But the idea of like, how do we have that conversation? So when it's not nepotism to get onto the leadership team, right? Just because your last name is Smith and we're Smith Incorporated, it's, Smith Wealth Management. No. What does it look like? So that accountability chart, I keep mentioning this thing. It's like, there's the tool. Does the person get it, want to have capacity to do the job? So if your name is on that accountability chart and your name is to own the sales leadership team, it gives you freedom to say, hey, I own sales, I own finance, I own this. We're not like, we're all together in family and it's like mom or dad owns the company and so they're going to make all decisions, and make it like a real company. Like your ownership of a company is based on, I'll call it just a shareholder. I own shares in Apple. Right? Okay, cool. That doesn't mean I get to make decisions for Apple, right?
You don't got Tim Cook on speed dial?
I do not. No, I would like to. But that idea of like, I can own shares, but can't do it. So think of the shareholders as that. So if shareholders are family members and they're in the business, they need to be in the business. If they're going to work on the business, they're on the leadership team. Or maybe they're a shareholder meeting. That's a separate thing. But the leadership, so it's freeing to that team to say, hey, look, Where's the line here that we're talking about in the business? Here's the roles. Do that, and then I on the sidebar of family businesses, it's like what says here stays here, but we're open and honest with each other. And there's people on the leadership team who are not family members. We're the same way with all of us in that meeting. So we're not like, well, we're both Smiths. We'll talk about this on the side.
In the car ride home, we're going to have a different leadership meeting.
Right. And that you could smell that, in a second, and everybody just waits for your answers. And now you've created that fiefdom. Congratulations. So that is not what we want. So we want this idea of accountability chart. Own it. And every quarter, look at that and going, hey, are we living up to this? Are we doing this at home? And have rules. I love it when we can have rules of the game. Like, hey, what stays here? What goes home? And I'm not a marriage counselor or a family counselor either. So.
You say that in your presentation, I think, too, if I remember correctly.
But I'll say, and your mother? And so I'll do those questions. But, it's. So that I think the idea is it's harder for family businesses always because there's an extra dynamic of I love them, or hopefully you love them, but that idea of they're in the business too, families first. Let's protect that relationship. And the business model that this is about is just simply like making it clear what the rules are once you step through that door.
I think what I've picked up about EOS is a huge component of it is just transparency.
Yes.
And everyone getting on the same page, and I think transparency goes kind of hand in hand with that. When people feel invested, they are shareholders. They feel like they have ownership of that seat that they are in when they feel like they are in the right seat. And I think for a lot of financial advisors, this could be helpful.
Right. Yeah.
To put it mildly.
Yeah.
I know you might say use a stronger word, but
yeah.
I do see the value in it, and I think a lot of financial advisors would benefit from the structure and the structure of EOS specifically. The book, again, Traction by Gino Wickman. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time, shining a light on all of this, and kind of walking us through not only, sort of the language associated with it, but just sort of the pain points and what works and the times where it doesn't work, why and how it can be fixed from that point forward.
My pleasure.
And so if you are looking for other ways to grow your financial practice, our Impact Partnership YouTube channel is a great resource. We've got a lot of marketing tips through house rules. And then we've also got another series, Selling with Stories with Randy Cook, where he comes up with some more creative ways to talk to clients and prospects. We've also got some great client testimonials on that YouTube channel as well. If you're listening, great. I'm glad you found us. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe, and stick around for, all the great podcasts that we're going to put together. So Dave, once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.